start the Q&A with Phoebe Stone and David Carlson and myself. I wanted to welcome Leanne Rule to the stage just to say a few words about the Ruth Stone House and the work they're doing, because people often want to know what they're doing at the house, and she does have a couple of books for sale. Leanne, why don't you just say what's happening now?
Yeah, hi. What are we doing? We are trying to raise money to continue the renovation of the home. Things have been sort of at a standstill, but as we learned in this beautiful film, we're attempting to make it sort of a space that's outside of the traditional institutions of poetry, to invite people from everywhere to come and experience what Ruth did in that. My voice is changing rapidly. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about it. We are raising funds for that endeavor. I do have some broadsides that we've made at the house. I think maybe with, I don't know where Phoebe is, but I think she's connected to the Vandercook up there. And a few books, not very many, but I will be out there sitting at the table. I would like to get anything.
And you could probably sign up for, more books and to learn more about the workshops that are happening.
I should say the website has a lot of information about the ongoing workshops. We've got a lot of visiting poets that are teaching classes through our website online, so they're very accessible and really, really interesting. So we're just sort of, it's sort of a grassroots endeavor, but there's lots of opportunity to take part and to visit the house and to come to our weekly workshops on Tuesday evenings. So yeah.
And it's just up the mountain, so it's not far.
What's the website?
RuthStonehouse.org. Yeah.
Thank you, Leanne.
Yes, thank you.
Phoebe and David, you want to come up? And I'm not sure who wants to. Oh, David Carlson, who is in the audience, is the wonderful photographer. A lot of the stills that you saw in the film were taken by David, and he's a graphic designer and photographer who lives in Middlebury. So I guess he doesn't want to come up. And Orly, I want to introduce Orly Yadin, my friend, and runs the Vermont International Film Festival, and she's going to be doing the Q&A. Oh, you've got the microphone.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I'll be moderating the Q&A, and I just want to, this is the second time I've seen this film. We first showed it last October at the Vermont International Film Festival, and like all good poetry, the second viewing was even better than the first. And I'm sure the third will be even better, for me anyway. And just one more thing I'd like to add before we open it. The VTIF, the Vermont International Film Foundation, that runs the festival and 2 other festivals, we also run a program called VAMP, which stands for the Vermont Archive Movie Project. It was listed in the credits, in case you saw. And the reason it was listed in the credits and what that does, it has as its mission to locate, preserve, catalog, and make accessible all films made in Vermont by Vermont filmmakers. And indeed, what I believe that what VAMP did in the context of this Ruth Stone film was we helped digitize the Walensky footage, which is so wonderful and really instrumental in bringing the younger Ruth Stone to life. So I just want to mention that if you have any home movies or films you have that somehow relate to Vermont, please do let us know. It's, you can just write to orly@vtif.org, or you can just Google VAMP on the website, and there is a place there to add your messages. Thank you very much. And over to Nora, I guess. Nora, would you like to say a few things, or shall we just start with the questions?
Oh, let's just jump into the questions.
Is there anyone who wants to?
Not a question.
Okay.
Just the depth of beauty of this piece of work, the eye behind this film the editing of this film, and the glory of this woman. I mean, you've made a masterwork documentary.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, over there. And then
Could you talk about whether you knew Ruth Stone and, talk about whether you knew her and the story of how you came to make the film?
Yes, I received a phone call from someone named Chard Tenyord, who you saw in the film, a poet, who was poet laureate of Vermont for a while. And he said, I know there's a poet up in Ripton. Ruth was living with Marcia at that time. And I'm interviewing her for a book on elder poets. And she's so beguiling. She has such a wonderful presence. I think it would be great to film her, do an interview with her. So I went up and interviewed her on film, on camera, digital video. And it was at that time I just fell in love with her immediately. And I said, oh, I'd actually like to make a film, a documentary about her. Do you think the family and Ruth would be interested? And then I guess Chard spoke with family members. Actually, Phoebe Stone, I don't know if you all know Phoebe Stone, but she is a wonderful, amazing painter and author who lives in Middlebury. Anyway, Ruth's daughter, and you see some of her work in the film on some of the book covers, and you see her doing pastels, a photograph.
One thing that I noticed in the film, when my mother reads the one about the blackbirds and the veils, she was sitting in my house with her little notebook and looking at my paintings. So the two of them, the imagery and the paintings in that series, as her daughter, that was kind of something when I heard it, it just was a personal kind of, it was wonderful to hear her say it. It was beautiful.
Who's that? The poet, Mantra?
Yes, mantra. Yes.
Yeah, the very last poet, well, not exactly, but she's quite elderly, close to the end, an amazing poem. Yeah, well anyway, so so what did Chard do? Did he ask you? What happened? Because then I went to your house and interviewed.
Oh, yeah. What did he do? I remember the day you showed up, you and Chard, and it was fun to meet and everything. I don't know how he, maybe Marcia was sort of the mediator who called me and said, hey, we're doing this film, you know, and I said, yeah, it was great.
Yeah, so then I went a couple of times, and then, and then it sort of expanded. I mean, Ruth then died in 2011, and, still kind of editing the film. And then I started interviewing poets who knew her and other family members. Bianca gave me a tour of the house, and then I started working with Bianca on the animation because I thought it would be great to, it's interesting, making a film about a poet is so challenging because they use words, like.
That's what's so great about this film. The way you blend in the visuals with the words, I mean, it's fabulously edited.
But it wasn't obvious to me that it was, I knew that Ruth's presence on camera was so incredible that I don't think I would have wanted to make the film if she was someone who just read her poems like this, but she recited them, they came out of her. And so I knew that her presence, just visually, she was so amazing at 94, but I did wonder if it could carry the film, and at one point I asked Bianca, who I knew was an artist, as well as a poet, if she might consider doing animation for the film, and she said yes. She hadn't done any animation before that, I think as a little girl.
there was a question. Okay, the mic's over there, and then we'll come down to the front here.
Is this for
Yeah.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit about perhaps your mother's attitudes about and maybe influences
I can't hear you. About my mother's what?
her attitudes or her views of things like religion, mysticism. I mean, it just seems like when she reads a poem, it's almost like she's in a trance.
Well, yeah. Her attitudes were religion. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, she always claimed or told me that she learned or felt, or the first book her mother ever read her was the Bible. Her family were Christian Scientists, and they were very religious. And they read the Bible to her. And, some of the songs in the Bible are just, they're just beautiful. And that rhythm, she always claimed that the rhythm of those things, the Bible and the songs, just lived inside it. And, and yes, she was mystical kind of. She didn't talk about it. She was not religious. She was very irreverent about that sort of thing. Her family, her mother and father were very, her mother was very, very religious. Her father had been a gambler, an alcoholic, and a musician who was always running around when he was little. And her mother introduced her father to Christian Science and cured him. So they were really religious. But mother really was rebellious against her. She was an early bohemian, and she didn't want anything to do with anything that seemed restricted, So yes, of course she was mystical. Her poetry was pure mysticism. I mean, it just shivers with it. But she had to, you understand. Yeah.
We have someone in the front here. Here, raise your hand.
Yeah, I think you actually answered some of my question earlier, but a couple things. One, I really shared the feelings that were spoken about the story and also the editing. Seeing her story was very powerful to see in the way that it was edited together and combined different times and different elements, and seeing her reciting a piece of her poetry and then years later finishing it was very interesting, and that hit pretty strongly for me. I also really loved seeing the animation in there, and then learning that it was also done by a family member it made it a very meaningful part of the piece. I guess a question that I had is what was the scope of, how many years did it take to finish this story about her life?
Well, I started in 2009, and I finished recently. Yesterday. And actually, yeah, the tweaking, but the story is there. The scope of the story, I probably finished a year ago, I think, and then it's been just this process of refinement. Like audio, little tweaks and musical. Like, I was even hearing today, like, oh, that's a mistake. Like, little things that probably no one would notice except me. It's an ongoing process. There's a curse to being the everything on a film, like shooting, editing, everything. In the old days, you would shoot on 16 or 35 millimeter, and then it would go on to the post-production people, and you really rarely had an opportunity to make changes. But now, because it all takes place in my office, I can change it forever, and I really don't want to, but I'm a bit of obsessive compulsive.
So, for those
Great work.
Thank you.
For those of you, and hopefully there are very few who haven't seen any of Nora's other films, which are all very, very different. Nora is continuously refining her films. So, such a perfectionist, I have never known, and I've known many filmmakers. Can I just add one more thing about what I feel is to add to what people have said about the strength and the beauty of this film? there's one thing to make a really compelling story, a compelling film about a person, in this case a poet, but anybody who is part of the community of the audience who come to see the film, i.e. people in Vermont, obviously are interested in a Vermont poet. But what I think this film achieves, and that's also true of some of Nora's other films, is she takes a local story and actually makes it of universal interest. So even if you've never heard of Vermont before, you live somewhere in Timbuktu, if you have any kind of sensitivity to poetry and to art, you will enjoy and appreciate and be stimulated by this film. And Nora, your most recent film about the opera in the pandemic in Hanover High is another good example. If you haven't seen it, follow it around. It's playing here and there and everywhere. Again, a small story about Hanover High and a group of kids with the teacher rehearsing for an opera, school opera, which you could think, oh, well, only the parents of the kids would be interested in this film. But what Nora managed to do in this film is create something much, much bigger than the bare bones of the story. And it's a film that could be enjoyed anywhere in the world, about resilience, about art, about pandemic, anything. So, yeah, I'll stop my compliments here.
Thank you.
Any other? Yes, very quick. Oh, would you like to say something?
You did
What?
a beautiful, beautiful job, and it was wonderful to see Yvonne Daly, with her just having passed, and I'm thinking, wow, that would be another great film, as you have done with Ruth Stone, is to doing Yvonne Daly.
Yes, I wanted to mention that Yvonne Daly, who you see several times in the film, very recently passed away at, too young, 73 or 4, I think. And yeah, she was a wonderful contribution to the film. So we will thank you for mentioning that.
Thank you. I have a question as well. Thank you, Nora, for your work. It was beautiful. And I think you should also do a follow-up film with Phoebe, just because the tradition of Nora Stone and then Phoebe Stone is very interesting, how it moves from mother to daughter. So that's a suggestion. But my question is, there's this story.
I can't hear it.
Can you maybe talk into the mic?
I'm sorry. Thank you for your good work. And I was suggesting that perhaps you would do a follow-up film with Phoebe because of her amazing work around here and mother to daughter, right? The spirit flows through. But what I'm thinking about is a question. There's a place in the movie where you talk about Royal Albert Hall and the good old boys club and stuff. And I know that Ruth was not so much affected by the genre, the zeitgeist at the time with the boys and stuff, but that she was her own person. But I'm thinking, you showed W.S. Merwin and also Robert Bly. Can you tell a little bit about her relationship with these men poets and how they maybe have either learned from her or affected her in some way?
Her relationship with her mentors or as a mentor of others? Because I'm
Either way, just that
how she handled
The old boy poets, Merwin.
Oh, God, yeah.
And Robert
Growing
Bly.
up, I remember going with her. I went to thousands of poetry readings with her. And we would go, I was a little girl and then a teenager and so on. And there would be with some poet, male poet, that was very aggressive and wonderful, but who would just, and he would be a little bit, dismissive to her. And she used to suffer over that. We'd hear about it quite a bit in the car going home. It must have been difficult. She did have trouble that way. Yeah, she did. Is that what you meant? Because I still,
And I was actually looking for the possibility of a positive relationship. Say Robert Bly.
She had a lot of great, she loved Robert Bly. They were absolute intimate friends. They really loved each other as friends. Yeah, he sort of reminded her of her father, the gambler musician guy, my grandfather. And they had an adorable relationship. And let's see, others too. I mean, lots of
Galway.
oh yes, Galway, she loved him. I'm just thinking way back when she was younger, when I was a little girl, when she had some trouble with some, I just remember that. But also later, oh no, she had all sorts of wonderful interactions with, you know. Did you want to just hear about male poets? She had lots of, you know.
Well, you were going to talk about many things, I'm sure, but it was just when I saw like Donald Hall and the Oxcart Man and the story of a poem with words, and I was thinking about you and your mother, and how the relationship between men and her evolved over time after Walter.
Her relationship between men after Walter? She really loved my father, and she's not kidding. I'm not kidding you, I recently have been reading her letters to him during the war, and she was really in love with him. And she really never looked at anyone else afterwards. And there were suitors. There were suitors, I remember. She wasn't interested. She loved him. That was it. She's not kidding. You know, it was really, that's the way it was.
Where's the mic? Yeah, over there, yeah.
I don't need a mic. At the risk of...
You need the mic for us to hear you.
You want to bet I don't need a mic? But at the risk of heaping too much praise on you, it's a fabulous film. You've done an amazing job since the first time I saw it, what, 5 years ago? 4 years ago.
1 year.
1 year ago. It's amazing. I know you're not finished with it yet, so I'm not going to say anything. But it's really terrific. And I'm interested in, is Ruth Stone taught in the school system? Is she on the curriculum anywhere?
Well, I'm going to say one thing about that. Maybe Phoebe knows more, but I know that when I did a work-in-progress screening of this film, and a teacher from Hanover High School, 9th grade English teacher, saw it, she immediately changed her curriculum to end the year with Ruth Stone. So, yes, I do think she is being taught. Probably not enough, but she is. Phoebe, do you know?
She's taught. I think she's taught quite a lot. I don't know if this, maybe the film will help her be known more in the public sector, I don't know. But I hope, it seems it would. It's an awfully beautiful film. But I do think she, you know, you'd be surprised. I think she's taught. I think she is.
Great. Yeah. There's Nora, I don't know if you want to mention, I propose the public that the film will probably be shown on PBS, and how you had to recap the film a bit for that.
Well, yeah, we are in the works with American Public Television to show it. They haven't formally accepted it, but kind of informally are very, very interested in it. I did have to cut it down to a little over 56 minutes. I have a 56, 57-minute version, which actually is really quite good. I was, and actually after I did that work on recutting it for that, that's when I went back and made some changes in the longer version, because I learned some things by doing that cutting. But yeah, I think she's being taught. Now, I was just at the University of Arizona. They have a fabulous poetry center, and I think they must teach her there, because they had invited her to come and give a reading. Anyway, there's some...
Nora, we need to wrap it up in about 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, sure.
Here's one last question, maybe a quick call.
Thank you for providing us such a wonderful film. I have 2 specific questions about segments of the film. The first one is the old footage that was in black and white, showed a deteriorating film. Was that natural deterioration, or was it induced externally?
That was natural. I mean, that was digitized from the deteriorated film that was in Sydney's shed. I mean, there was a lot of good stuff that hadn't deteriorated, but that was some of the deteriorated.
The other second question is when Ruth was sitting on the couch or chaise lounge on the porch, every once in a while I would see some bare feet or a leg or some green pants. Or can you tell me who that person was on that couch with her?
Oh, the little girl?
Yeah.
Nora. That's Nora. You saw her, she's interviewed quite a bit as an older woman. I mean, not old, but, you know, an adult. That's Nora, her grandmother.
Thank you again. It was very memorable film.
Yeah, at one point you show her as sitting on the chaise lounge with my mother, and then you flip to the grown-up Nora.
Yeah. We have room maybe for one last quick question or comment.
I have a quick one.
Where?
I'll yell. I wonder if Ruth ever met Mary Oliver, the poet here.
Mary Oliver.
Oh, yes, yeah, she did. It's unbelievable how many people she knew in her lifetime. And yeah, I'm positive she knew Mary Oliver. And you know, there's letters from all sorts of people when you go through her papers. So, you know, she knew her. And Sharon is huge, and she's in the film. Sharon Olds was huge. I remember the first time I met Sharon when she was 15 or 16 when she came up to our house. And she wanted to be a poet, and I remember her. She's lovely.
We can continue the conversation outside. They're just throwing us out.
Yeah, and
there's a film festival going on and other films.
And I do want to thank the Middlebury New Filmmakers Film Festival for inviting me. I'm so, so grateful.